Yes, 1, 2, 3. Test.
I have to hug Michelle first. What's the word? Yeah, yeah. No. Low jump. You're gonna color. When do you guys repeat? Terrible. Feel so bad for them. Well, so sit down. And now I'm wearing them finally. Come on, let's go this way. No, no, no. What's going on?
All right, good evening, everyone. We're gonna get started.
Where do I go? I was able to. I was able to.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know it is a busy time of year, so for all of our community members here this evening and those joining us from home, thank you for attending. My name is Lori Cannetti. I'm the interim superintendent this year, and I would like to just welcome many of our administrators are here this evening. Our board trustees are here this evening, so everyone give a wave. There you go. Thank you. So I do appreciate the time. We're really going to spend some of the evening discussing the new legislation that was passed in all of New York State regarding the distraction-free schools. So tonight I'm going to give you a brief overview. We have a few people speaking, myself, Mrs. Walsh is going to have the opportunity to speak. Mr. Ahern is here, head of security. And then at the end, we will have some time for questions and answers. Please know that if I didn't answer your question, for those of you joining us from home, there will be the opportunity at the end. You also received it from me via Parent Square, a little QR code where you can submit questions, and we'll do a Q&A document following the presentation. So just for those of you who may not know, with this year's state budget, Governor Hochul did pass a law that requires all of New York State to have a policy in place by August 1st that prohibits the use of electronic devices that connect to the internet for the 25-26 school year. And the law is not just for Patchogue-Medford, but all of New York State. So that is important to know that this is a state law, not an individual school district. It is also important to know that prior to this law, we did have restrictions on the use of cell phone and internet devices within our school community. There are some changes with this law that actually add a little bit more to what we were already doing within our school buildings. So this will take effect this September in all elementary, middle, and high school, and it really is the result of the governor's initiative on mental health. So there is a lot of information on the website if you'd like to read a little bit more about Governor Hochul's initiative, but this will take place this September. So why the law? And I think it is important to understand where this came from. And I'm sure as parents, I am a parent, so I do have 3 children. I think we would all agree that there has been a tremendous increase in the use of cell phones. Probably if you go on your child's setting in their smartphone and you actually click on screen time, I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to do that. I just did it myself today. And you can see the average number of hours and minutes any one individual is spending on their phone. And it may even shock you to find that students are spending an awful lot of time on the phones, and maybe even adults are. Okay, so one of the things we're really focused on is that when kids come to school, they're engaged in their learning. They're here for a very short period of time. On average, they may be here for 6 hours a day, and we really want their full attention. And some of the things that we're focusing on is the fact that if you do see students and you have the opportunity to see kids interacting in the school, things that we're noticing in school is the lack of social interactions, eye contact, conversations with their peers. Oftentimes you see them looking down at their phone, even having their AirPods on as they're walking the halls and not even engaging with their peers. So that was a big push with the governor, that they're looking for more social interactions, not so much isolation, that face-to-face interaction, and also distractions. If you ever have your cell phone on you, you know that oftentimes there's alerts going off, right? A post just comes through on Instagram or Snapchat. There's a chime, there's a vibration on your phone, and kids immediately want to respond to that because they see it or hear it or feel it during the school day. So those are the things that we're trying to reduce here during the time that we have them when we want the kids to be engaged in their learning. We posted this on our website because there's some startling facts here based on research. So it is important to see that many of our students right now actually, in terms of cell phone use, notifications, if you see the number of notifications right here, 500 plus notifications daily. That's a lot of notification that students and adults are receiving every day on their phone. If you look at in terms of Some of the other statistics, you can see that many of them are also looking at some inappropriate material online. So these statistics are pretty startling. And one of the things I would also point out is that we've had the opportunity to read a text that I think many parents may be interested, and even our students. It's called The Anxious Generation. If you haven't read it, it's a pretty incredible book that really speaks about the generation and how social media has really consumed our students over the last 10, 15 years. So if you haven't read the book, I encourage you to read it. A lot of research was done on social media and the impact of students in this new generation, and specifically female students, more likely than male students. So if you are looking to read a book, I highly encourage you to pick this up. A lot of research included in there. So again, what is the benefits of a distraction-free classroom? One of the things we're really looking to focus on is the academic benefits. Again, increased focus, more efficient use of instructional time. One of the things we actually surveyed our teachers at the end of the year as we were preparing for this new law, because we did anticipate it being passed, was tell us how much time you feel is being wasted because we're dealing with cell phones. And on average, teachers were saying anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes a week. Now, that may not sound like a lot of time, but if you multiply it by the number of weeks in a school year, we're missing out on some good instruction because we're constantly asking, put your phone away, put your earpods away, put your Apple Watch, turn that off. That is distracting the teachers and learning. Not all students, but if it's happening in class, it's affecting the entire class. Social emotional benefits, we talked a lot about that. And that term, fear of missing out, right? So kids have their phone on them. As I said, an alert goes off. They immediately want to be able to respond to that alert. So also, instructional benefits, absenteeism. That's something that we have seen significant decrease in the number of days kids would be out when phones are taken away from them, okay? So having the phones in a distraction-free actually helps with attendance. Mental health, again, I think we would all agree that many of the discipline problems we face in schools have to do with social media and things that are being posted, things that are being filmed. So it is important that it actually helps with discipline when you're in a distraction-free school. And the last thing is for our educators in the classroom, it's instructional time. It's actually more engagement, more collaboration within their classroom. So a lot of the research behind distraction-free speaks about a lot of the benefits. And many schools throughout the United States have already implemented this. Many schools, some right here in New York State, have already implemented this. So why students need bell-to-bell? One of the things we did talk about, and a lot, and I really would like to thank the community. We did send a survey out to you back in May and June, and we asked for some of your feedback. A lot of the things we heard in the over 1,400 comments we received, and I would like to acknowledge that many of our trustees read every one of those comments because they were given the comments that you shared with us. Oftentimes, the biggest fear for parents is safety. What happens in an emergency? How will my children contact us? And we have spoken, myself and Mr. Ahern were actually at the 5th Precinct introducing ourselves to our local law enforcement, and they would be the first ones to agree that kids on cell phone doing an extreme emergency actually inhibits their ability during an emergency situation. That oftentimes inaccurate information is being sent out, and it's causing more anxiety to our families because it's not factual information that is being shared, and they're not listening during an emergency evacuation to their teachers, their building leadership, and instructions during an emergency are critical. Oftentimes, you're putting the safety of your students in our hands. We take that very seriously. I think as a district, we've added multiple layers of security over the last few years. That's the #1 concern for myself and our trustees. But when there is a crisis, our teachers and our building leadership, they're well trained. They know exactly what to do, and so do our security guards. You have to trust in an emergency situation, the best people to handle it is us, and we need the students' attention. So I am going to turn it over to Mrs. Walsh. She's one of our psychologists, and she's done a lot of research on this, and then she's going to turn it back to me. So Mrs. Walsh.
Thank you. I thank Mrs. Cannetti. I thank all the assistant superintendents, as well as the Board of Education. For those of you who don't know me, obviously my name's up there. I'm Carolyn Walsh. I've been in the district 26 years. I've had the privilege to work in the every single grade level. Over 10 years up here at the high school with Dr. Razulowitz. Over 10 years at Saxon Middle School, and over 4 years at the elementary level. The reason why this became important to me was, like Mrs. Cannetti said, this was on my professional reading list over the summer, and I'm also finishing up a admin degree where they asked me to do a research paper. So the research paper I did was on the negative impact of social media on mental health. This is a nice clicker. Sorry. This is really cool, this clicker. Okay. So pretty much what, I'm going to lean over here. So pretty much what Mrs. Cannetti explained in her slide about all the different reasons, but I wanted my research paper to be more than a book report on the anxious generation. So I researched anywhere and everywhere. There was a research study on the negative impact of social media usage on mental health. And to summarize, because I want to be succinct and focused, that's a professional area of growth for me. The negative impact of mental health for social media usage are issues, and you can see this as families. You might have already seen this on the news. Sleep deprivation, brain development. It impacts mental health, as Mrs. Cannetti mentioned, especially anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. The anxious generation shows that since 2010, those rates have grown exponentially. But it also impacts learning. There's been direct research that increased social media usage can cause hallucinations in children, aggression, increased body dissatisfaction, and cyberbullying. That again is also especially for female students, putting them at greater risk for eating disorders, and it can exacerbate already existing mental health. Now, that sounds sobering. Don't worry, there's good news. There's supports and research there on the other end of that. But I just wanted to say, why the cell phone ban? This did come from the studies that are in the anxious generation, but it also came from Teachers Union, the American Federation of Teachers. The National Education Agency did research about the negative impact in the classroom specifically. And that was actually all the stats that Mrs. Cannetti already went over. This has a lot of educators' support. Like I mentioned, the Teachers Union, but actually, since we have the Board of Education here, it also came from, and I'm forgetting the acronym for the big Board of Education Association. Okay, that one, okay? And honestly, the big focus is that we have to have a balanced approach. And like Mrs. Cannetti said, students are missing out on social opportunities. They're missing out on learning, and those things impact. And mental health impacts attendance. The research on chronic attendance problems indicates that that also causes problems, grade delays, and even long-term impact on your job employment. So these were my research questions that I did in my report. Basically overlooking also what are the benefits. Mrs. Cannetti mentioned that some school districts in New York State have already done this. I researched all the states that started this. So one of the first states was Florida, Illinois, Texas. So this goes beyond red and blue states. This is not a red and blue state issue. This was implemented in many states, and they saw positive outcomes. So the research, Mrs. Cannetti mentioned a few, but in all those states, they saw after they implemented the ban, and additional research was done internationally in France, Ireland, Australia. I also did that in my report. So the benefit is increased achievement, decrease in bullying, decrease of needing of emergency counseling support, increased student engagement in the classroom, like Mrs. Cannetti mentioned, increase in socialization, increase in grades, increase in school attendance, an increase in overall mental health, and a decrease in discipline. In the studies wherein there was no effect, it ends up that the cell phone policy was not implemented with consistency or fidelity. Okay, so this is the challenge we have that Mrs. Cannetti kind of already mentioned. We are facing as a society a teen mental health crisis. My mind was really taken back when I started reading The Anxious Generation. And I have Dr. Lori Goldstein to thank for choosing my research topic on my paper. So these kind of went together, and to me, it's a point of all my interests: psychology, education, technology, advocacy. So these were the core problems that we're now seeing, which Mrs. Cannetti mentioned. But I wanted to bring up the research about the inconsistency, because that was one of the things noted in the studies and also in the concerns from teachers and educators, was that sometimes when the cell phone policies were not consistently implemented, that was where there was difficulty. But overall, all the research indicates that all policies need to take a balanced approach to look at the whole child, and that we need community support and parent buy-in. And I'm going to be working very closely with my immediate supervisors, Dr. Lucas, as well as Mrs. Candela, and my cooperating administrator, Dr. Hochberg, and Mrs. Cannetti, to try to help and do things to help support and educate for parents. So just to review the key findings, we mentioned about social media usage is linked to a decline in mental health, bans improve academics, and there's instructional benefits to have the bans in place. The key findings, like I said, one other thing, one major study indicated that parents who set time limits on social media, that was a mitigating factor. Those students had less concerns of mental health illness, as well as developing personality traits of self-control. So like I mentioned, community collaboration, we need your support. So thank you so much for being here tonight, as well as for participating via Zoom, and what schools can do. And this is what we're already doing. We're having a community meeting right now. Mrs. Cannetti can speak of any advisory committees that we're doing. We have always been promoting SEL. We have an SEL curriculum. And I know we obviously promote mental health here in this district, and we want to foster a positive climate with strong teacher-student relationships. because that also, by research on a separate area, that actually helps increase school attendance. Thank you so much, and that's the most succinct I've ever been, Lori. That's a cool clicker.
All right. We're going to get you one of those. So again, I'm just going to go over some of the key requirements in the law. And again, I think many of you may have already read about this, you know about it, but here are some of the law. No use of cell phone and internet embedded devices the entire school day. And I think this is the big change. I think we would all agree that instructional time is instructional time. Most parents will say when kids are in classroom, they shouldn't be on their phone. They're learning. The difference with this new law, it adds that phones cannot be used during recess, lunch, study hall, and passing time. A true ban from bell to bell, from the time students enter the building to the time they leave. It is important to note that students can bring their phone to school. That was a question that constantly came up. But when they get here, it has to be stored. So they will have it on the bus, they'll have it at the end of school, should they want to bring it to school. One of the things we asked the parents when we sent out that survey, does your child bring their phone to school? I would say predominantly at the secondary level, most students are bringing their phone to school. At the elementary level, very few. And if they were bringing something, it was more of an Apple Watch, not actual cell phone. But we did see a spike in that at the middle school and high school. So the phones can come, but they have to be locked up. And one of the things that Mrs. Walsh spoke about was consistency. And the most important thing is consistency. And to be fully transparent, as I said earlier, we did have a code of conduct that said no cell phones. But the important thing, it wasn't consistent. There may have been times when a teacher said, we only have about a minute left in class. I'll let you take out your cell phone. But yet you went 2 doors down and maybe another teacher said, no cell phones out. That's the code of conduct. We have to take responsibility for that. We know there was inconsistencies in that. This law mitigates that. Every teacher in every classroom, in every school throughout New York State must abide by this law. It's law. It's similar to we do not allow students to come in and smoke cigarettes. Years ago, maybe when I went to school, that was common. And a law came in, no one was allowed to do that. That's the law. It's very similar to that. And I will acknowledge there will be a time of transition. This is not easy. This is not easy for parents. It's not easy for students. And to be quite honest, it's probably not easy for even our educators. But we're all in this together. And I promise you, as a school community, we will work in partnership to make the transition as positive as possible. But there are so many more pros than there are cons. And that's what we have to be focused on. One of the things that we spoke about was also the fact that it doesn't exclude devices that are issued by the district. So if we're issuing students a device, they can use their computer. There are safety systems in place, and what's on a student's computer is actually overseen by the district. Certain apps, software apps that we're using, we follow very strict Ed Law 2D with safety and security features put into those apps, okay? So students can have their computer with them during the instructional day. It doesn't include that. There are exemptions, of course. We understand there are certain situations that students will have. And you can see the law is very specific on what constitutes an exemption. One exemption may mean healthcare. We may have students who have 504s. They may be a diabetic and their cell phone is used to monitor insulin levels. That is allowable as long as there's medical documentation on file. That is something that the law allows students to carry their phone with them. It also, translation. Although translation is an exemption, that's not necessary in our school because students have a one-to-one device. So our computers do that for the students. They don't need their phone. The second is a caregiver. That's a very, very, very small percentage if we even have any student. Number one, you have to be over 18 to be a caregiver, right? But if you were someone at the high school and you were the caregiver for your family and you had documentation of that, that would be an exemption, that you would be able to carry a phone. Not that it couldn't be sealed, but there would be different restrictions for you, okay? And also required by law, legal mandate. We don't have any student right now that has a legal mandate to have a phone on them. And also IEP in section 504, which I mentioned, and I know Dr. Lucas has already put some questions and answers on our resource page for parents about 504s and IEPs. Funding. So this was a state law. There was some funding that came to districts from New York State to implement this. You can see that Patchogue-Medford received a little over $39,000 to help secure some of our yonder pouches that we purchased, but you can see there were very specific things that districts could use the funding for. We actually had to go into a portal, we had to upload our policy, and we had to outline how we're reusing the funds within the Patchogue-Medford community before funds are released to school districts. And it also, the law also indicates that we have a deadline requirement of August 1st, which has passed. We were able to get a policy passed in time by August 1st. And there's going to be other restrictions that we have in terms of we have to collect data, we have to post the data to the community at the end of the year, and I'll get into that a little later on in the slide presentation. So you can see device storage. And this is important to know because this came up often in the survey and some of the questions. Why can't the children just use backpacks? That is not allowable under the law. Just using a backpack does not follow the law as it's written. So it's very specific that it says backpacks are not acceptable storage. Devices must be stored someplace else if they're in a backpack. So yes, you can have a backpack, but where is that backpack going? If it's on the children all day, it's not storage. So it is important to know that these are some of the things that the state has said is allowable. You can have locked pouches, you can have lockers, maybe there's cubbies. We're using all of them at various locations, okay? And there was flexibility in every school district throughout New York State. That's part of your policy. So that's a conversation that myself, the Board of Education, feedback that we receive from the community, feedback that we receive from our teachers, our administrators, that's what made us decide what we were going to use here in Patchogue-Medford. You can go 2 towns down and they may have something entirely different in their school district, as long as it followed these guidelines. So what are we doing here in Patchogue-Medford? At the elementary level, students will have to, of course, every student has to silence their phone. So it has to be silenced before you come in. At the elementary level, again, we had very few parents that indicated that they allow their child to come to elementary school with a cell phone or an Apple Watch, or they would have to put it in their backpacks, and we store them in cubbies. All of our elementary schools have little closets or cubbies, and students would put that there during the day. At the middle school, the devices, of course, will be silenced. They're going to be placed in the backpacks, and then they can put them in the locker. If they don't want to put it in their backpack, then the phone can go directly in the locker if they're choosing to still carry their backpack around. But the phone can't follow them in their backpack. At the high school, we're doing something slightly different, and that's the Yonder pouch. We have sample of the Yonder pouches here. It looks something like this. The phones actually go right into the Yonder pouch. It closes, and then the kids can keep it on them all day long. They carry this with them, okay? It can fit one phone, it can fit a smartwatch, and it can fit a pair of AirPods. It can fit 3 items in this. It actually locks like this, and then it's on them for the entire day. Okay, so, and at the end of the day, they'll come to a device that we put up here, and it actually just unlocks. And then they would leave for the day. So that is the system we have in place at the high school. Many of you may be saying, well, why are we doing something different at the high school? I would say many of our students are not using their lockers here at the high school. They're just not. It's a very large building. If their classes are predominantly on the 2nd floor and they happen to have a locker assignment on the 3rd floor, they're never going there because they can't make it from class to class. We have a 4-minute passing time here at the high school. Some of the questions are, why can't we increase passing time? That's not possible. We are mandated by law to be in school a certain number of hours a year, and we create our bell schedule and our passing time in order to meet that state mandate. Right now, we barely make that. We're about 1 hour over what we're required, and if we added more passing time, it would put us under those hours, which impacts funding to the state, to the district from the state. So passing time, we knew at the high school, could not increase. Passing time at the elementary, much easier. Smaller buildings, less students. So decisions were made based on the size and the structure of each building. Okay? So those are the 3 storage devices that we have. At the middle schools, of course, at the end of the day, they go to their locker, they grab their phone, and then they can leave for the day. As soon as they leave, they can start using it. Unlocking devices, you could see here, these tables have been ordered. These are magnetics that are actually bolted into this table. We have many of them ready to go. They'll be set up at the north entrance, the south entrance, the main entrance. We will have multiple tables with multiple discs. They recommend that it is 1 disc for every 60 students. So we actually exceeded that to make sure that our kids would be exiting in a timely fashion. In addition, we will have 1 of these in our vestibule in the main lobby here. So if for some reason a child forgets to unlock it while they're leaving, They can always come back and unlock it. Additionally, there are handheld devices that look like this that we can carry around during the school day should we need to unlock it in an emergency situation. Our security guards would have them, our administrators would have them, and also in an emergency situation, we purchase extra to be packed in our emergency to-go bag. So if, God forbid, we needed to evacuate the building and we have to go out to the field, and there comes a point where we know everything is secure and we feel like the kids need to make contact with their families, we can go around and unlock the devices while they're outside. So we have emergency to-go bags with all of these handheld devices purchased for the high school. So that gives you just a quick snapshot. Dr. R will be sending out additional information to our high school families. These yonder pouches will be numbered. Every student will receive a yonder pouch at the beginning of their 9th grade, and it's theirs for the entire 4 years. It is washable, so if they feel like they want to wash it, they are welcome to do so, but it's their device, their storage device for their 4 years. We will be handing them out at 9th grade orientation. Dr. R has already ready to go with a letter within the next day that's going to encourage students to come pick them up during the summer. Should they be here on site, they can get them before the school year begins. Any student that was not able to pick them up will receive them in their first period class the first day of school. So there's multiple opportunities during the summer. I think, Dr. R, we said after August 13th. Yep, Wednesday next week, they'll be ready for pickup for our high school students. All 9th graders get them at orientation. Anyone who can't come will receive them the first day of school, and it's theirs to keep. They don't have to turn it in at the end of the day. They just have to remember to bring it back the next day. Parent communication during the school day, that's another question. How are kids going to communicate to us during the school day? If a child needs to communicate, there's the nurse's office, there's our main office, we have phones in the guidance office. If there is a true emergency, your child will make contact with you. We promise you that. Okay? One of the things that is important to know is at our high school, all students have email. So during the school day, our high school students do have access to email, and that email can come in and out. So yes, can they email me during the school day? Yes. If they're in a study hall, they can send you an email. If they're at lunch, they can send you an email on their school-issued device. They'll be able at the high school to email, not at our elementary and middle schools. We've also created this contact. Some of the things we heard from the community is we never know where to call. So we have this ready to go. It's just a quick one-page sheet that lists all the phone numbers, very easy to see, that if you need to get in touch with someone, who do I call? And this will be on our website. It is already up on our website under that parent resource page, but we'll be keeping it up all year for parents to locate very easily on our website. We also have one for the secondary. So again, I spoke a little bit about the timeline. Many of the things we've already implemented. If you go down to the last 2 bullets, you would see that September 1, 2026, we have to complete an annual enforcement data report to the state. The state wants to know how many infractions were a result of students not adhering to your board policy. We have to post that to our community, and we also have to submit that to New York State every year. That's part of the law. Okay? So we will have to do that every year thereafter, but it does start at the end of this school year. So I think this is where I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ahern. I think, as I said, security and safety is our #1 concern, and Mr. Ahern has done an excellent job implementing some additional security measures, and he's going to speak to that.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Cannetti. My name is John Ahern. I'm entering my 4th school year here as Director of Security. Just a little bit about my background. I was a member of the New York City Police Department for 23 years. I went on the job in 1991, and I retired in 2013 as a lieutenant. So 23 years of law enforcement experience, and once I left the police department, I entered the school security business, and this will be my 7th year between two different school districts. So Ms. Cannetti just wanted me to speak a little bit about some of the upgrades that we've made in the last 3 years, since probably 2022. We've made some excellent upgrades. So most of my speaking here is not going to have to do with the yonders or the cell phones. It's going to inform you on the upgrades that we've done in the last few years. So access control, it's a big piece of security in the district. We have a strict visitor policy, and we'll be even making that a little bit stricter come September. We have implemented a new visitor management system, which will be inside of the vestibules of each school building. So if you come into the building to visit, you're actually going to enter all the information and scan your own license inside the vestibule. You will not be allowed into the building until you complete that process. And whoever you are there to see, if you have an appointment, we encourage appointments, by the way. Please, if you're coming to our buildings, try to make an appointment. And this way, if you're seeing guidance, if you're seeing the principal, the assistant principal, they'll come down and walk you to their office. So we want visitors to be escorted inside and in and out of the building, and you'll have to check out as well. So it's a new system. It also does a background check on you, on visitors, so that's a great piece to that as well. So the visitor management system, the background check actually checks for sex offenders. So if there is a sex offender that pops into that system, it's going to alert the district. It's going to alert the building principal and administrators in the building. I got it. Wrong button. Okay, so emergency response. So a lot of this stuff is logistics inside of a building, what we're doing in an emergency and how we're planning to respond to an emergency. So we have a lockdown system that puts a building in lockdown. We have different ways of doing that. I'm not going to get into the complete logistics of this, but there are ways inside the building and inside the offices to place a building in lockdown. What that means is that the access control system will be shut down. Nobody will be able to come into the building, even with a card. And there will be flashing lights, and the entire building will be notified that it is in lockdown, and then the procedures will take place. The teachers will follow the protocols and procedures inside of the classroom. Weapons detection system. So we started this last year. You probably have seen some of our metal detectors at some of the events last year. We started utilizing them at sporting events and concerts and things like that. This year, we'll be implementing metal detectors at the secondary buildings, so the middle schools and the high school. That'll be every day. We'll be using those. PA system. So the district installed a brand new PA system in every school building, and also a new phone system in each classroom. So the teachers are able to contact 911 from the classroom in the event of an emergency. And they can also make a PA announcement throughout the entire building from one classroom. So if there's something happening in a classroom, a teacher can get on the PA system or get onto the phone for 911 to get first responders to respond to the building. Lockdown system, we talked about. It does, I missed that point. It actually, when the lockdown system is activated, it goes directly to 911. And the response is very, very quick. We've had some false alarms where the law enforcement has been here within minutes. So it does work very well. Surveillance system. So for the past couple of years, we've been assessing the surveillance system, and we make sure that we are replacing outdated cameras. We've also added additional cameras in each of our school buildings. We're probably around 850 cameras district-wide, and we monitor that system 24/7 from a command center in the district. So that's constantly being manned. During the school day, it's manned by 2 people. So we're constantly watching the buildings, we're watching what's going on in the buildings. If there's an emergency, we know about it very quickly. We can contact authorities, and we can also, from the command center, place a building into lockdown as well. And first, so the FirstNet phone system, that's just something that's coming to the district. Unfortunately, when Suffolk County Police Department and law enforcement agencies come into our buildings, they have trouble communicating on their own radio frequency. So this is going to drastically improve that. In the event they have to come in the building and communicate with each other, this will help them. So this is just something like I'd like to just inform you about. We do have vape detectors now in the high school and the middle schools inside of the lavatories, the restrooms. So those, if there's any vaping activity, THC activity, smoking, alerts go out to principals, alerts go out to administrators in the building. We go to the video camera, we see who's coming in and out of the bathroom, and then we conduct an investigation. So, you know, I have to say that they work pretty well, and I think we've drastically reduced the vaping inside of the buildings. So training, the guards and the staff go through annual training. In addition to our drills, we do lots of drills in this district. We're required to do 12 drills per building per school year. 4 lockdowns and 8 evacuation/fire drills are conducted in each building throughout the school year. So a lot of drills, a lot of training. Law enforcement, when I arrived here, the police officers from the 5th precinct and the 6th precinct, they weren't really participating in the drills. I encouraged them to come participate so they start to know our building, know our faces. It really helps them learn the layout of the building. And I've also been able to give them access to the building in the event of an emergency, a serious emergency. They can get into the building, whether it's, you know, even if the building's in lockdown. So like Ms. Cannetti mentioned, we just sat down with the new 5th Precinct commanding officer. We had a 90-minute discussion about, you know, collaborating more often, communicating more often with them, especially if some of our students may be involved in incidents out on or off school grounds. So we want to know what's going on in the community as well. So that's we have a really good relationship with them. I think that's all I have. I just want to mention one thing. Ms. Cannetti mentioned it. Communication between the district and parents. I 100% understand how parents will feel in an emergency. They want to contact their children. But as Ms. Cannetti said, bad information is not helpful. And that's what most likely happens. That usually happens. You know, information goes out that's not true. It confuses people. It impedes law enforcement's investigation. So you have to trust the district, and I think we'll work really hard in making sure if something happens, communication will go out very quickly from the district to you. Okay? Thank you.
So I'm just going to back up to the slide in terms, a lot of questions really have surfaced about discipline and enforcement. When you put a policy like this in place in a law, there has to be a level of trust. We have to be able to trust students that they're following our procedures and our code of conduct. And if students are not, and a phone is found, then yes, there are consequences to that. And our policy outlines that. So the first time, if a child says, oh yeah, my phone is in my yonder pouch, and they're walking into school And then in the middle of English class, their phone goes off and it's in their backpack and not in their yonder pouch, that's an offense, right? So the first time that happens is that we will take the child's phone, it will be brought to the main office, and the child can come pick it up at the end of the day. What happens if that happens a second time? The second time, we're going to take the phone away. It's going to be brought to the office, but a parent or an adult that's listed on the emergency contact would have to come and pick that up. And then we would do that same for the third time. The fourth time, we would result in a detention. And the fifth time, this is the 5 chances, same student, 5 times not following the code of conduct, then it would result in an in-school suspension. So we are not, and we know the first week of school, parents and students, it's an adjustment. We're not looking the first day of school to start grabbing phones, but we are going to prompt you to say, put your phone away. We have a new policy and it can't be out. Where's your yonder pouch? Go to your locker. Put your phone in your locker, regardless if it's middle school or high school. So we know the first few days are going to be a transition. It's going to be a transition for you, for our students, and for our teachers and our building leadership. And me. Definitely going to be an adjustment for me, right? So I understand that, and we're going to work with you. But by the second week of school, this policy and these consequences will be in full implementation and will be enforced. But we understand there is a transition. We understand that. Okay? So it is important to know that. We are, as I said to you, we are required to report. I explained that to you at the end of the school year. One of the things the state is looking at is they're looking at demographic to make sure that there is no discrepancy with any particular subgroup within your school, that we are enforcing the law consistently throughout the entire school for all of our students. So that is part of the law. I did share, I don't know, gentlemen, if you can, I shared this with the community. There is a survey there. Should you have questions that were not answered on our parent resource page, but I would like to thank Mr. Richroth. He worked with me to really create a research, I keep saying resource page for our community that has anything and everything we think is something you need to know about. So there is a Q&A. We'll pull that up. If you haven't seen it, this is it. It was our presentation from April, myself and Mr. Tulin, the president of our teachers union. If you guys can please scroll down a little, you can see it also has a extensive amount of information about our policy, the law that was passed by the governor. It also has some pages that you can access with governor's information. And if you go down even more, there's a Q&A. Everything that we thought was a question that the community had in some of the surveys, we tried to answer. So if you click on the plus sign to a question, if you guys can do that, there's an answer to it. It can be translated in multiple languages for all of our community, and there's many questions and many answers. So if you haven't had the opportunity to look at this, I encourage you to look at that. If there are more questions that we haven't answered, that survey, that QR code, which is at the end of this presentation, you can submit additional questions, and I will be working with my team to make sure we answer them, and we will repost that again with some more of the answers to those questions, if they haven't already been answered. That survey is open until the 13th, and then we will post some of the answers to the Q&A we received from the community. That is the end of my presentation. We will have the opportunity to take some questions this evening. If any one community member does have a question, I'm happy to have you come up. I would ask the community to really just give everyone the opportunity. One question, we'll answer it, and then afford everyone the opportunity. At that time, we will conclude once we get through all the questions. So I will turn it over to the community. If you'd like, we have mics set up. You're welcome to come up here. Certainly don't want to have to start singing.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm one of the community members, alumni of PatMed as well. My son is in the high school, and you mentioned that if we needed to reach out to our students, we could email them.
Yes.
However, currently at this time, my son cannot receive emails outside of the Patchogue-Medford School District. Will that be changed so that we can send out emails from our personal emails to our students at the PatMed site?
So I'm going to turn it with Mr. Richroth. He's our Director of Technology, so.
I was figuring that was going to be the first question. So I was ready to go for it. Students 9 through 12 can receive emails from outside sources. If you're getting a bounce back or anything, maybe that email address is blocked, you can reach out to me on Parent Square, reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure that it goes through.
Okay, great.
But yeah,
Thanks.
students in 9 through 12 can receive email from outside the district.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Marilyn Castillo, community member and parent. I submitted a question. I just don't know if you answered it. There was something in the policy you guys listed that the superintendent could change the parameters of like the school day, that you could enforce the ban like outside of school. Like, would that mean like school events or trips? Like, can you just kind of clarify what that meant?
So the policy does give discretions right now.
Okay.
We're not looking to enforce
Okay.
that. But should we see that there is a situation that occurred maybe during the school day that we feel like we have to put extra security in place, we be working with our building principals to do such.
Okay.
But, you know, we want the kids to be coming to Raider Bowl or football games and have access to that. So right now it is open, but should there be a situation that we feel that it would impede the safety at that event, we would enforce it.
Could I do a follow-up question?
Sure.
Okay, sorry. With the yonder pouches, like, what if a kid doesn't bring it in? Do you have like extras? What if they forget? What if they lose it? What's like the backup plan
Excellent
for that?
question. So I'll answer that. So we will have multiple entrances at the high school. So right now, if a child forgets their ID, there's a separate entrance for the students to enter. That's where they'll enter if they forgot their yonder pouch.
Mhm.
We would store it for them for the day, and they can pick it up at the end of the day. Should a yonder pouch be damaged, lost, and a parent wants to replace it, there is a cost if
Sure.
your child chooses to want it, but we can always store it here for them. Again, the lockers are available for student, but most students are not
don't,
using
yeah.
them, no.
Thank
they're
you.
not. You're welcome. Any other questions? Again, I'm here. I'll wait up here if anyone would like to come speak to me directly. And again, I really would like to thank the community. I know on an August summer night, there are probably a million other things that you could be doing. So the fact that you did come, really, I appreciate that. It really means a lot because I know you really want to have all the right information as we start the school year. For our students, I encourage you, if you're a high school student, if you want to come check out the pouches, you're welcome to do so. And again, thank you to our community. For those joining us at home, have a wonderful evening. And for joining us this evening, again, thank you.